All right, man. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for hopping
I'm
on and
good.
doing this.
You're welcome. All good. How are you?
I'm well, dude. Well, hey, why don't we start with, who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
Yeah. So I'm Imad, Palestinian Italian, living in London, and I'm a pop music producer.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, describe your situation before you came to Dark Label, just so people can kind of say, okay, where were you at before you sort of came in and started working with us here? What was going on back then? What was going well? What were you trying to fix? Fill us in on that scenario.
Sure. So I've been full-time producer for since 2017. So that was like that's 5 years. It's been 5 years. And although I've been doing it for a while, producing here in London full-time in my own studio, but I think I was overworked, completely overworked and underpaid for sure. So I was doing like 12-hour days, 6 days a week. I'm making about 3K, £3,000 on average every month. So, you know, I wasn't in the best place. I had work, a healthy flow of work, but I was just constantly churning out songs, and it was too much for me, you know. Overworking also meant that I wasn't really improving as a producer. I felt like I reached a point where I wasn't really improving, and especially my business wasn't improving. So I felt like I was spending 100% of my time, producing songs just to be able to make enough money to then go on to the next month and do the same, and not really putting any money aside. Um, so yeah, to me,
Yeah. And
the healthy,
trying to balance writing camps and stuff like that as well, and um, doing all that.
exactly,
So yeah,
exactly, yeah, trying to balance things that made money on the spot and things that didn't. And because of where I was before, it felt like I just did nothing but work, really, and I knew something really had to change. You know, another issue that I had before was I really had no way of finding new clients or new artists to work with. I was lucky enough to have people find me, but it gave me a lot of anxiety because I never knew if that was ever going to stop or will it stop. You know what I mean? Or if it slows down. If I go a month without any new person contacting me, then I'll start thinking to myself like, okay, I don't have any new clients that are coming in soon. So like, what am I supposed to do? So that anxiety was also quite hard to deal with. So yeah, so I knew something had to change, and that's kind of what prompted me to contact Dark Label.
yeah, man. I appreciate you sharing that because it's like a super common place for a lot of working guys to be. I'm not normalizing it, but it's just a situation that we hear all the time, and I think in the public eye, it looks like, oh, that guy's like crushing it and is really good and really
Yeah,
talented.
exactly.
Like, yeah, of course. Like, sure, you are, but like there's always more to the story. And so
It
I
was unsustainable. I
yeah,
think when
it's
I when I explained my situation to the people in the industry, they would always say like, "Oh my God, you're working as a full-time producer every single day, and you can afford your own studio, you know. So therefore, you must be grateful." And I was grateful, of course, but it wasn't sustainable at all. Like if I didn't change, I don't think I would have continued because, you know, taking very little holiday and basically just ignoring every other aspects of my life is not worth it. Um, so I knew that I had to change or else I wouldn't have known what to do, you know. So
yeah.
I was always very busy, but going in the wrong direction, basically.
Well, and being grateful about it, that even adds a whole nother layer because you're like, I feel like I should be grateful at the same time. I'm not pumped about this. And then you get all, you know, head struck
Exactly.
about that stuff, man.
Exactly. I always get this. I'm like, Emad, you're such a busy producer. You must be amazing. And I'm like, yes, but at the same time, I wish I could go home,
Right.
at a reasonable time and be able to spend time with friends and play some video games. So definitely it's not the end all for sure. I
It's
know it's
like
the right time working.
the bar is set so low. It's like, well, as long as like the bills are getting paid and you're working all the time making music, like, aren't you happy? Isn't that the life? And it's like, God forbid that you want stuff that you would have from like, a normal career, right? Some time off, some investment, some things like that. It's
Absolutely. And it was hard to put money aside as well. Actually impossible to put money aside. So that was also a big issue. Like it's tough to, especially when Corona hit, and having very little money in the bank just showed me that everything could be possible and anything could happen at any time. So some sort of security is important,
How did you figure out? Because we'll talk to a lot of folks in this situation. Sometimes what's tricky about is that, if they're unable, if they don't have a lot of resources to invest in fixing the problem is slower. Sometimes we can't help them, right?
Mhm.
How did you figure out, given that circumstance, how did you figure out how to invest into Dark Label and get this fixed? How did you make that work?
Uh, Basically, I would say the first 3 months that we started working together. So I have Saturday off. At least I've had that. And so then I stopped taking Saturday off. And Saturday was my Dark Label day, basically, where I spent a lot of my time just improving, And I knew that it was going to help me soon, was going to help me to get my time back and money back and everything back. So to me, it was an investment that was easy to make because I couldn't wait, to get down and to change things and to improve things. So I just basically took no time off for a couple of months. It was that simple.
But what about even investing in it in the first place, like getting the money? If it was kind of month to month, did you have a little set aside? Did you do something else to do it? Or if you don't mind me asking, I don't know. We've
Yeah,
never
no,
talked about this, so I'm just curious.
yeah, no, of course. So I guess it was super cutthroat. I'll be honest with you. Like making the payments, being able to afford everything plus the Dark Label meant that, I was very cutthroat with my own expenses. Everything had to go down. I found someone to take the studio once a week. That Saturday that I wasn't in the studio because I doing Dark Label things, all I needed was my laptop really. So, you know, hiring the studio out on a Saturday as well just gave me a little bit more money. And it just meant that in that time, I really had to be very careful with my expenses. So I could afford it. I always could. But to be honest with you, I've always been good at budgeting. So just have to make sure that my budgeting was like on point, basically, you know.
Maybe we can have you come in and do a little budgeting workshop for the rest of the crew.
Just Excel spreadsheets. That's all it is.
Yeah, man.
Uh,
You had to get creative. I get it. I
yeah.
get it. I've been in the same situation. Well, that's awesome, man. So obviously, you've been kind of in the community for 6 months or so at this point. A lot we can do in the future, but what happened? What changed? Wins, takeaways, what's sort of the circumstance or situation rather, what does it look like now?
So completely different, like day and night. I'm in a completely different situation now where like, I'm not trying to hype anything up. This is just the reality that I'm living. I'm completely different place, basically. My family has noticed, my friends have noticed. Basically, we've managed, so in 6 months, we've managed to double my income. And it's still rising. That was our initial goal together, and we've smashed that. I'm working like 60% less of the time now. So I just got so much time back. And I use this time for either relaxing, playing video games, or doing TikToks, still being able to invest in the business side more. So that's the biggest takeaway, really. More money, more time, better projects as well. In general, just an incredible improvement in every aspect, basically. And the clients that I'm working with are the same ones that I used to work with before. And they've even noticed an increase in value as I have more time for them. As I charge more, it means that I have more time to spend on the songs. So even the quality of the songs have improved. Because I need to do less songs now than before to make the same or even more of the income. So it's basically just a win-win for everyone. It's massive, massive improvement. And I'd say like the mindset change has been the biggest game changer for me, for sure. I think the mindset change really allowed me to reach these results. And then lastly, I want to say that now I would say I have a very good control of the flow of new clients. I know what to do if there is a slow time in the workplace where, okay, maybe I could get some new clients in. I know I have a process for that. I go and do that basically, and on the other side, I get more people to work with. So I also don't have that anxiety anymore of like, oh no, no one has contacted me lately. Now I'm like, okay, I know that, what is it? So like June, like July, I know that I have 1 or 2 more spaces left, so I can go in and start working on finding some new clients. So yeah, that's the situation where I'm in. And because I know how to find people and how to begin new relationships with people, I'm confident with the pricing, because I know that if I've got a no from a client, that would have been maybe the only new person I would have worked with, because I have a lot of repeat customers, but it's always good to have new people to work with. If that was a no, then that was a no, and that's it. I would have had nothing else. Whilst now, I don't mind so much about the no's, because I know I'll get a yes later on from someone else that I speak to tomorrow or after tomorrow. So even my anxiety behind the whole business has decreased massively, and I feel like I have much more control, for sure.
Yeah. The situation you're in, I think a lot of people watching this may think that like you're in the ideal situation to grow, and there are some ideal pieces about it because you are proven in the market, and like,
Yeah.
there's some confidence stuff comes with that. But from my side, this can actually be the trickiest transformation. Working
Mm.
with guys that are already full time and then they're trying to grow,
Yeah.
because it's very hard to get, they're just so used to how they've done it, and they almost get like
100%.
addicted to the comfort of what they have. They want to grow. It's not for any reason of lack of desire, but it's like a lot of habits to undo versus someone
Yeah.
that's starting fresh. They just have to deal with like, can I even do this? Right? They're just not proven yet. However, they don't have some of the, you can
It's
kind of
all
like
new.
train them right out of the gate to just think a certain way.
Yeah.
So like what what I guess switched in you to, because you did it pretty well. Like, was it just sort of the pain had gotten so great, you're like, screw it, I'll do it any other way? Or what? I mean, what how did you mentioned something about mindset in there, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, how'd you do that, man?
Um, First of all, yes, the pain was great. Like, I felt like I have been doing this for a while now, and the results weren't there in terms of how much I was working and how much money I was making. So I knew that something had to change. Like, clearly what I was doing was wrong. And in terms of change, yes, we've had to change everything, right? Like, basically ripped my whole process apart and started from fresh. And that was hard and scary. But to me, it's like I have to do that, or else I'm stuck making very little money and working all day every day. I'll lose all my friends, you know, not gonna have the life that I want to live. And also, I feel like when you have more time back, I now have time to be able to improve as a producer, as producing, like churning out songs. I don't feel like I improve as well as when I'm literally, in front of my DAW and just trying things out and maybe learning some new skills. So I also thought that if I wanted to step up my game as a producer, when I went to these writing camps, I was always trying to understand, where I was, and I felt like, okay, I need to step up my game here, and there was no way of doing it before because of the fact that I just had no time. I think the to be honest with you, like when we started, I had no idea what was coming up, right? I knew that something had to change, but then once we've gone into the swing of things, and once the mindset change was proposed, it just made sense to me. I was like, okay, this is clearly makes sense. What I was doing before clearly doesn't make sense. It was like a lot of aha moments, basically, with all the things that I've learned in Dark Label. There was no like, maybe this is, I don't agree with this, or I'm not sure about this. It was like, yes, clearly this is the way I should be doing things. And without trying to sound like I was being mean to myself, a little bit of the times I was like, look, I've spent a lot of times trying to improve my production, trying to improve my writing, and trying to make connections in London. And I've spent zero time on the business side. So when I was presented with those things, I was like, well, clearly they made sense, because before I was just going with the flow, building up my business like processes just as I went without really thinking about them. So to me, when I learned them, I was like, well, this is clearly how I should do things, and rip everything apart and start anew. And I would also have to do that with the artists that I was working with, because this new way of doing things, I think the first thing that me and you did was I went back to 10 or 15 clients that I was working with, and I had to be like, this is how it's going to be right now. This is the new way of working. But there is so much value that I can bring now. So to them, every single one was so excited. I think I've lost 1 or 2 clients out of the 10 to 15 people that I talked to. Everyone was like, okay, I can see why you are more expensive now, and you've changed things, but clearly this is for the best, you know? So yeah, that's it.
What's your favorite thing about the new version of your production business?
I have so much more time to spend on things. Before, I was just doing as much as I can, as quickly as I can, and falling back to my old production ways of doing things. But now I have time to be like, I'm gonna try something weird, and I do this all the time now on every production because I have the time. And you know, if there's things with an artist that are not working out, I don't mind, because I know that, again, I have time to spend. Maybe some artists finish a product quickly, some other artists take more time. Before, if a project was taking a long time, I would start to get anxious, because it's like, well, I already don't have enough time. And there was a lot of conflict. But now I'm like, you know what? You know, if it takes longer to work on this artist's project, I can and I will, just to make sure that we get to what they want to, and to make them happy. And in the end, that's the most important thing, that the artists are really happy and super pumped for their song, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I can relate to that too. When we feel like we don't have enough time to actually do the craft because of the business stuff. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. It's tricky to sort.
Yeah.
It's another big thing. Of course, you know, when we started Dark Label, it was all about like get everybody the most money possible, you know, and it's just over the years, just as I've learned more about myself and my business, and then have just worked with many, many more people. It's looking at it more of like
Holistic.
the lifestyle design. Yeah, what do you want life to look like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can go from 3,000 to 13,000 a month. You know, I've ran
Yep.
production businesses that have done much more than that per month, but you ain't going to get there working 60% less, you know.
Exactly.
Just finding that balance. Now you could get to a point where it does earn that, and you still work 60% less, like through your catalog, maybe. I mean, there are ways to do that, of course, or someone just gets better at business and delegating.
The freedom, I think, is important, though, right? Because that 40% of time back, I can invest it however I want, either by going out with my friends or doing some more Dark Label stuff. You know, to me, that's not work, because that's investing in it. I get that it's work, but it's not production work. So that's important, you know, having that 40% time to be able to say, I'm going to invest that 40%, all of it back into the business, or, you know what, this month I'm going to take a holiday and relax a little bit. And that's also important, you know, relaxing. Have some time off.
I agree. Just got back from a little vacation myself.
Nice.
So a couple more questions. We'll wrap here. Why'd you go specifically with Dark Label, with our community? What drew you to us specifically?
I think number one definitely is trust. I felt like, you know, I mean, if you think about it, that's why artists choose us, right? Because they trust us. And that's really what stood out for me from Dark Label, from other options. It just seemed like a genuine, trustworthy community, place, company. I had several meetings with like other business coaches before I found Dark Label, and just to be completely honest with you, they all had very big claims, like, oh, you should be earning 6 times as more and everything. And I'm like, cool, it just sounds great what you're saying, but do you mind backing it up a little bit? Or who have you worked with? And it just felt like I didn't really trust anyone that I've talked to before. It felt like they were all kind of selling to me. And then when we had our call, and it seemed like, okay, this guy clearly knows what he's doing. And it's something that's has been going on for a while. And I think the thing that really got me through the through the gate, or like the decision maker at the end was just the extensive list that you have of people that you've worked with. You know, as soon as I saw that and that I could contact them if I wanted to, I didn't in the end, but I know I could. Just shows me that there's people that trusted you enough and that are happy with their decision. So to me, that's the most important part, really. You know, you're proven basically, and so I trusted that. And of course, our call was really important. You know, I got a really good vibe from from our first call. So I thought, okay, it seems like Dan really knows what he's saying and probably going to be able to help me for sure.
The expectations piece is important, I think. And again, it's just like understanding someone could earn 6 times more. It's like, okay, well, what does that mean though? Like what? Yeah, I could be earning 6 times more in Dark Label, but what would Dark Label have to look like? Or, you know, what is the
Yeah,
arc of getting to that 6 times what we're earning? How fast do we want to do that? If we did it that fast, what would that look like? So I think there's just like more, you know, there's more than just like you should X. Some of
exactly.
this, man, and maybe it comes off as trustworthy. I'm glad it does. Some of it is I just don't have the answer yet until we work with somebody and bring them in. And obviously, you know, there's other people involved in Dark
Sure.
Label that help and advise, and I lean on them a lot for certain things.
But I'm sure that you've worked with people who were in position X and now they're in position Y. So it's not like it's you're going completely blind, you know. And I think
No,
that's
for sure. You can base it off. I mean, I think the benefit is having a lot of data over many years with a lot of different people, you know.
exactly.
And even some of the like other companies we're involved in that do like a slightly different thing, but like kind of similar market. I see data from them and how those, you know, people think and act and behave and what they achieve in certain time frames and what gets in the way. And yeah, you start just kind of seeing patterns and stuff like that. And you can make some guidance. You can give some guidance, lay out how to get there. But again, I've had some folks that on paper it was just like incredible, right? I'm like, oh, if we did XYZ, we'll definitely get this. Like based on data should be good. Then we come in and when we actually start working, you know,
Yep.
some big hurdle comes up and that's maybe a mental thing or something happens in their life that radically changes the situation now, right? Like, oh, I had to move or this thing happened or I'm going through a divorce or, you know, it's being able to roll with those punches. It's like, well, that kind of changes what we originally had. And that happens with artist
Yep.
projects too, right? So,
Mhm.
so yeah, like I think I'd rather it, you know, for us, we want our clients to stick around for a long time so that we could be a part of their career for a long time.
Yep.
So I'd rather, you know, kind of I don't know if underselling's the right word, but like be real with, you know, because it's not like I'm selling them and don't have to sell them something and never talk to them again. You know what I mean? It's pretty intimate relationship. So
100%. To
I,
be honest, that's how I kind of learn in general. I'm not very good at just watching and digesting information. I'm much better at talking to someone, and it could also be people in the community. Just I need to be able to talk to someone about things. So that's also another reason why. Like,
oh
if it
yeah,
was just a course, video course, I would watch it and then not really know what I'm doing. And there's been a lot of times where I've read some things, and then after I've had a conversation with you or with someone else in the community, I was like, oh, okay, I think I know now. I get it. Before, like, it needs something to cement it, basically cement information. You can't just go off of reading and gather information. It'll get you somewhere, but not far.
sure.
You know.
Yeah, it plants the seeds. It's there for reference, but
Yeah.
yeah, in context, you know. And yeah, look, I think you made an important point. The talking to other folks in the community about it. There's a lot
Yep.
of people in there that are way better at their particular thing than I am at their thing, you know.
Mm.
And people iterate and they come up with their own ways and like, you know, that is the most important part to me. I know most people when they come is, oh, I just want to talk to Dan or I just want to talk to Aaron or what. It's like, yeah, no, you will. We will, of course. But like, I'm not just throwing all this other stuff in there for no reason. It takes more work. Why would I throw it in for more reason if I did for no reason if I didn't have to, right? It's there for a reason. And it's because of the quick, you know, so and so figures out this new way to do it and then tells other guy, and then now it's like a new thing, and the learning just happens at a much more rapid pace. And then if we need some intimate time to chat through something, like great, we're there for
Even
that.
just reading through the comments,
Yeah,
just watching people's conversations, I'm like, oh, that's quite interesting.
and just staying plugged
or
in, like
or even things like that are very, very new, like AI, for example. There's
oh yeah,
some
yeah,
discussions around that, and I've learned so much from people in the community because someone just went in and did some research and again came back and told us all. It's like great, So
yeah,
the community.
exactly. There's gonna be people that are super into like certain things, like
Yep.
I think there was conversation going around like virtual assistants and like one about like, hey, if I have a commercial studio, like what should I do with it to also monetize it,
Hmm.
probably a good one for you to speak on. But yeah, it's like one guy, like I don't care who it is. I know there's a lot of awesome business coaches and consultants or whatever you want to call us out there, managers out there. Um, it's great, and hopefully that they could probably all admit this well as like there's
Mhm.
never going to be like one person that just knows everything is the end all be all like thing. So, um,
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely rely on the community to iterate and come up with new things, and then keep it going. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
What
Yeah. And we're all
wrap with this? What advice would you give to a producer who was not necessarily a beginner, but like was in your situation, overworked, underpaid, as you described it? What had been the
yeah.
biggest, and not just, you know, join Dark Label, but like some advice you would give them?
I think the most important part is investing time and resources. By resources, I mean money. You just have to invest to be able to grow and change things. That's definitely the number one thing I'd say. If you're stuck just doing the same thing over and over again, you will have to find some ways of investing in yourself. And that's the thing that, we've done. And that's the only thing that's kind of allowed me to grow and to be where I am right now. That's probably the biggest. And I would like being in London, I hang around with a lot of producers all the time. And I'd say that's the number one thing that I see that producers don't really do is just invest time and money into their own businesses and productions, Um, I'd say also don't be afraid to completely rip everything apart like I did. It was scary and it's hard, but it's really, really worth it. I guess if you're stuck in a situation, probably it's what you're doing that's kind of making you be there. And just by changing what you're doing, that's kind of what will get you where you want to be. Um, Another thing I want to say is like I think the mindset is really important, and believing in yourself is really, really important. And just having that mindset to say, look, clearly I know what I'm doing. I'm confident in what I'm doing. I'm happy to help clients, and I feel like I can bring in value. I feel like that confidence is so, so important. And being a producer means that you're a musician, which means that you're creative, which means that you're constantly doubting yourself, which is fine. And we all go through that. But I feel like when I'm in a room with an artist, if I'm happy and confident and like being like, look, this is gonna be great, we're gonna make a banger. That's probably the biggest selling point, really, and like the reason why people will choose to work with you just for that. So definitely believe in yourself 100%, and make that mindset change. Sorry, for sure.
So boiling that down to don't if you're kind of stuck in a situation,
Take some time out.
yeah, it's probably not going to change if you're just doing the same, it's probably not going to just magically, change.
Exactly. Take the
No.
time out to go back and be like, what is it exactly that's not allowing me to change? Kind of trying to understand what they are, and having the confidence to do that.
And I like the thing about the mindset, like, of course, believing in yourself and all that kind of stuff. And then I think also at the same time, you don't have to believe that you have to solve all your problems. And we
Yeah.
were talking about that in one of the last group session on Saturday. because
Mhm.
there are some high achievers in there. They get very guilty if they don't like get everything off their task list or whatever. We were
Yeah.
talking about different sort of ways to do things. And I asked them, I was like, do y'all think I'm a high achiever? Like, who here would describe me as a high achiever? And pretty much everyone raised their hand. I was like, all of you are wrong. I'm not a high achiever. Like, I'm not the kind of like one of the traits of that is not always, but one of the traits is like a lot of pride and they want to figure everything out themselves. Like, honestly, I'm not a high achiever. My default is just sitting back on that couch and hanging out. You know what I mean? I don't
Amen.
feel guilty if I don't get everything done that day. What I am good at is I don't have to
Mhm.
solve all the problems and know everything. So I ask for help very easily. I've always done that since I was like a teenager. And
Yep.
that was just my little strategy for growth. So I think that a lot of good producers, and many of them are high achiever personality types. It's okay if you're not,
Yeah.
but a lot of them are. So there's a lot of pride with that, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
I got to solve the problem myself, and because I do believe in myself. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah, it's a
So
lot
right.
easier.
But that's why I feel like if you are part of a community, I think it's a bit easier, not easier, but at least you're like, well, now I can, maybe reading some comments and reading what people say. I feel like you definitely feel a bit more enticed to ask for help for sure.
Oh
But
yeah,
you're so hard to ask for help, and I'm exactly the same thing. If there's a problem, I'm just gonna go do it. And I guess joining Dark Label was the first step of being like, clearly I need some help. And then I feel like joining the community and seeing people what they post and the things that they say, I feel like, okay, it seems a bit more natural to be like, hey guys, by the way, seems like the thing that we talked about last really helped us all. So I'm probably going to ask this now. And yeah, once you get into I feel like the hardest ask for help is the first one or two or three. So I would definitely like another advice would definitely be to push yourself to ask people when there's an issue. And then I feel like it becomes a bit more natural, especially as you get to know people in the community as well. And it feels a bit more like you're not really being you're not this doing a disservice to people by asking a question for sure.
yeah. Like when someone else comes up with something and they share it with you, that's the shit. You know what I mean? Like, so you're like, okay, great. Now I have this tool. I didn't have to do any work to get it. It was just because I was here. You know, that's
Exactly.
amazing. I mean, I feel like producers in other aspects, like in production, you do that, right? Like
Yeah.
you're
And
having a
you plug
session with
in.
other people, and some dude ahead of you like shows you what he does, and you're like, oh man, that just saved me a lot of time. But then when it
Mhm.
comes to business stuff, everybody wants to just shut up and not talk about it because that's doing, you know,
Yeah,
money,
there's a little bit
pride,
of
and
a
all that
taboo.
stuff.
There's a little bit of a taboo here in the UK for sure. I'm not sure about the US, but in the UK, people don't love to talk about their income or their business side because it's the business. But it's important. It's really important to share for sure. 100%.
Think in the
And to help
music
each other.
industry here is very similar.
Mm.
Other industries and maybe a little less taboo in America to talk about it, but no, I would say most of what I've seen from again from the data is that you know same kind of complaints around that, whether they're in the UK or here, as far as
Yep.
what guys talk about with each other and being open about it. So,
Yep.
dude, thanks
100%.
so much for having this conversation.
You're welcome, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.